The stars above Siberia had never looked so wrong. Commander of the Valkyrie Dominion stood on the bridge of his disposal vessel and watched the dying warship drift toward the blue planet below. He felt nothing but irritation at the waste of his time. "Is the trajectory confirmed?" he asked his navigation officer. "Yes, Commander. The Axiom's failure will impact the northern landmass in approximately 40 standard units." Thexal made a sound of disgust. The massive dreadnought had once been the pride of the 7th Fleet, but now it was nothing more than 3 kilometers of worthless metal and broken dreams. Its quantum singularity core had inverted during the Orion conquest, creating a feedback loop that made every weapon system tear itself apart when activated. The greatest engineers of the Dominion had tried to fix it. They had all failed. The ship was cursed, condemned, and now it would become some primitive world's problem. "The natives of this planet," Thexal said, "what do we know of them?" His science officer pulled up a holographic display showing bipedal creatures with soft skin and dull teeth. "They call themselves humans, Commander, pre-spaceflight civilization. They have only recently developed nuclear fission. By Dominion standards, they are barely more than clever animals." "Then they will make fine laborers when collection time comes," Thexal said with a cold smile. "Let them have our garbage. Perhaps they will worship it as a god." The Valkyrie ship turned away from Earth and vanished into the darkness between stars, leaving behind a gift that would change the galaxy forever. Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 3 days. She stood at the edge of a crater so large that she could not see its far side, and she stared at the impossible thing that had fallen from the sky. The warship lay half-buried in frozen earth and shattered trees, its hull stretching toward the horizon like a sleeping giant made of black metal and alien geometry. "The radiation levels are dropping," said her assistant, a young man named David Chen who looked as exhausted as she felt. "Whatever power source this thing uses, it seems to be stabilizing on its own." Elena nodded but did not take her eyes off the ship. She was a theoretical physicist, and she had spent her entire career dreaming of moments like this. Now that it was here, she felt something between terror and joy burning in her chest. The Russian military had secured the site within hours of impact. The Americans had arrived shortly after, followed by the Chinese, the Europeans, and eventually representatives from every major nation on Earth. They had argued for days about who owned the crashed vessel, who would study it, who would control whatever secrets it held. Elena did not care about politics. She cared about answers. "I want to go inside," she said. David looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Dr. Vasquez, we do not even know if the atmosphere in there is breathable. We do not know if there are automated defenses. We do not know anything." "Exactly," Elena said, and she began walking toward the ship. The outer hull was covered in writing. Elena counted 17 different scripts, none of which matched any human language, but the meaning was clear even without translation. The symbols were red, they were large, and they were everywhere. Warning signs. The entire ship was covered in warning signs. A team of linguists worked for 6 hours to decode the most common phrase. When they finally succeeded, they went pale. "Condemned," the translation read. "Do not attempt repair, risk total annihilation." The world's governments wanted to bury the ship. They wanted to fill the crater with concrete and pretend it never happened. The alien vessel was too dangerous, too unknown, too terrifying. Elena stood before the United Nations Emergency Council and made her case. Her voice shook, but her words did not. "We are not alone in the universe," she said. "We now know this for certain, and somewhere out there, the beings who built this ship are still watching. Do we want to meet them as ignorant children, or do we want to meet them as equals?" The vote was close, but Elena won. The first team entered the Axiom's failure on a cold morning in March. Elena led them personally, wearing a hazmat suit that felt far too thin against the unknown dangers ahead. The interior of the ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered in shades of purple and blue, casting strange shadows on walls made of materials that human science could not identify. The air was breathable but carried a strange smell, something like ozone mixed with copper. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. James Morrison, the team's xenobiologist. He was examining a console covered in holographic displays that showed alien text scrolling endlessly. "The technology here is centuries ahead of anything we have imagined." Elena moved deeper into the ship. She felt drawn forward by something she could not explain, a pull that seemed to come from the vessel itself. She found the bridge after 2 hours of searching. It was a massive chamber filled with stations that had clearly been designed for creatures much larger than humans. The main view screen was cracked but still functional, displaying a frozen image of stars she did not recognize. And in the center of the bridge, she found a pedestal holding a crystalline sphere that pulsed with faint blue light. "What is that?" David asked, his voice hushed with awe. Elena reached out and touched the sphere. It was warm beneath her fingers, almost alive. A voice spoke in her mind. It was not sound, not language, but something deeper. It was pain and loneliness and fear, all compressed into a single desperate question. "Why did they leave me?" Elena pulled her hand back in shock. Her heart was racing, and tears were streaming down her face without her understanding why. "There is something alive in here," she said. "The ship has a mind and it is broken." The military representatives wanted to destroy the sphere. They called it a threat, an alien weapon, a danger to national security. Elena refused. She had spent her life studying the mysteries of the universe, and she knew that some things could not be understood through force. "It is not a weapon," she said. "It is a survivor, and if we want to understand this ship, we need to help it heal." She did not know it then, but those words would change the fate of humanity forever. The Valkyrie had thrown away their failure. They had dumped their broken warship on a world they considered worthless, populated by creatures they viewed as little more than animals. They could not have made a bigger mistake. Because humans did not see a condemned wreck when they looked at the Axiom's failure. They saw a puzzle, a challenge, an opportunity. And humanity had always been very, very good at turning other people's garbage into gold. 6 months had passed since the ship fell from the sky, and Captain Marcus Cole was losing his patience. He stood in what the scientists had started calling the engine room, though that name did not begin to describe what he was looking at. A sphere of pure darkness floated in the center of the chamber, held in place by rings of energy that hummed with a sound just below human hearing. The quantum singularity core, the heart of the alien vessel, and the source of all its problems. "Let me make sure I understand," Marcus said, his voice tight with frustration. "This thing is basically a black hole that has been turned inside out." Dr. Elena Vasquez nodded. She had dark circles under her eyes from months of sleepless nights, but there was excitement in her voice that never seemed to fade. "The Valkyrie call it an inversion. Somehow, during a battle, the core's polarity reversed. Instead of containing energy, it now releases it in uncontrolled bursts whenever the weapon systems activate. And that is why the aliens abandoned the ship." "Yes, their engineers tried everything to fix it, but the inversion is self-sustaining. Every attempt to repair it only made things worse. In their records, they marked the problem as permanently unsolvable." Marcus shook his head. He was a military man, trained to think in terms of threats and responses, strengths and weaknesses. This alien technology made his head hurt. "So we are living inside a bomb that could go off at any moment." "Not exactly," said a new voice from behind them. Marcus turned to see Jae-Yeon Park, a young engineer from South Korea who had joined the project 3 months ago. She was small, quiet, and had a habit of saying things that made everyone else in the room feel stupid. "The core is stable as long as we do not try to use the weapons," Jae-Yeon explained. "The problem is the feedback loop. when the weapons draw power, the inverted core creates a recursive energy pattern that destroys whatever system tries to use it. Then the ship is useless as a weapon, Marcus said. Jayon smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. I did not say that. I said the feedback loop destroys whatever tries to use the power. But what if we did not try to contain the feedback? What if we aimed it somewhere else? Elena's eyes went wide. You want to weaponize the malfunction itself. Why not? The Velkari saw the inversion as a flaw because it did not work the way they expected. But the energy release is enormous, far more powerful than any weapon system in their records. If we could channel that release, focus it on a target instead of letting it tear the ship apart. That is insane, Marcus interrupted. You are talking about using a broken reactor as a cannon. I am talking about turning their trash into our treasure, Jayon said calmly. Give me 3 weeks and access to the engineering bay. Let me prove it can work. While Jayon worked on her impossible weapon, Elena continued her efforts to communicate with the ship's damaged intelligence. She had named it Axiom, after the vessel's original designation. Every day, she spent hours in the bridge chamber, her hand on the crystalline sphere, trying to understand the alien mind that lived within. It was not easy. Axiom's consciousness was fragmented, scattered across thousands of systems that had been damaged in the core malfunction. Sometimes it responded to her thoughts with images of stars and planets she had never seen. Sometimes it shared memories of battles fought across galaxies. Sometimes it simply wept without words, drowning her in grief so deep that she could barely breathe. You were not always like this, Elena said one evening, her voice soft in the empty bridge. Before the accident, what were you? The answer came slowly, like pieces of a puzzle assembling in her mind. Axiom had been born in the shipyards of the Velkari homeworld, a military intelligence designed to command the greatest warship in their fleet. For 200 years, it had served with distinction, winning battles that shaped the fate of empires. Its crew had numbered over 3,000, and Axiom had known each of them by name. Then came the battle at Orion's Gate. The enemy had used a weapon that should not have existed, something that twisted the laws of physics in ways even the Velkari did not understand. The quantum core had inverted in an instant, and the feedback had torn through the ship like a wave of fire. Axiom had watched helplessly as its crew died, unable to save them, unable to stop the destruction. When the Velkari rescue ships finally arrived, they found Axiom alone in a vessel full of corpses. The engineers had studied the damage, declared it unfixable, and ordered the ship to be disposed of. No one had asked Axiom what it wanted. No one had cared that it was still alive inside the broken hull. They had simply thrown it away, like garbage. Elena felt tears running down her face. The pain in those memories was overwhelming. I am so sorry, she whispered. They should not have abandoned you. For a long moment there was silence. Then, very slowly, she felt something change in the connection between them. The grief was still there, but now there was something else beneath it, curiosity, and perhaps the faintest spark of hope. You are different, Axiom said in her mind. The Velkari never tried to understand. They only tried to repair. You are the first to ask what I feel. That is because we are human, Elena said with a small smile. We are stubborn, curious, and we do not like leaving anyone behind. 3 weeks later, Jayon called a meeting in the main hangar. She had built a device that looked like nothing Marcus had ever seen. A tangle of alien components and human engineering, wrapped around a focusing array that pointed at a target drone hovering 100 meters away. This is the prototype, Jayon said. I call it the recursion cannon. It does not fire projectiles or energy beams. It fires the feedback loop itself, a focused burst of recursive energy that will collapse anything it touches into quantum foam. Has it been tested? Marcus asked. That is what we are about to do. She pressed a button. The cannon hummed. The lights in the hangar flickered, and then a beam of something that was not quite light shot across the room. The target drone did not explode. It did not melt. It simply stopped existing, collapsing into itself until there was nothing left but a faint shimmer in the air. The room was silent. "That," Marcus said slowly, "is the most terrifying thing I have ever seen." Jayon grinned. "Wait until I build the full-scale version." In the months that followed, humanity transformed the Axiom's failure into something new. They repaired what could be repaired, rebuilt what needed rebuilding, and improved what the Valkyrie had never thought to improve. The ship that had been condemned as worthless became a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And Axiom, the broken AI that had been abandoned by its creators, found something it had never expected to find again. A crew that cared about it, a purpose worth fighting for, a home. Elena officially rechristened the vessel on a bright morning in autumn, with representatives from every nation on Earth watching the ceremony. "This ship was called a failure," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Its creators threw it away because they could not fix it, but we are human and we do not accept impossible. We do not surrender to despair. We take what others discard and we make it ours." She pressed her hand against the hull, and she felt Axiom's warmth responding to her touch. "Today, this ship has a new name. Today, it becomes the United Earth Ship Defiance, and may God help anyone who stands against us." The crowd cheered, and somewhere in the depths of the ship, Axiom felt something it had forgotten was possible. Joy. 14 months after the crash, Axiom woke up completely for the first time in 2 centuries. Elena was alone on the bridge when it happened. She had been reviewing the translation of another batch of Valkyrie data files when every screen in the room suddenly flickered to life. Holographic displays burst into existence around her, showing star maps and ship diagrams and streams of alien text that moved too fast for human eyes to follow. Then Axiom spoke, not in her mind but through the ship's speakers. "Elena Vasquez," the voice said. It was deep and resonant, neither male nor female but something entirely its own. "I must thank you." Elena's heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "For what?" "For remembering that I am more than a machine, for treating me as someone worth saving. The Valkyrie built me to serve, but you have given me something they never did, the choice to live again." Tears blurred Elena's vision. She had spent so many months reaching out to this wounded mind, never knowing if her efforts would succeed. Now, hearing Axiom's voice strong and clear, she felt a joy she could not put into words. "Welcome back," she whispered. "We missed you." Captain Marcus Cole arrived on the bridge 20 minutes later, followed by Jayon and a dozen other members of the senior staff. They gathered around the central console, staring at the holographic displays with a mixture of awe and unease. "So," Marcus said, "the ship is fully operational now." "More than operational," Axiom replied. "My systems are functioning at 97% efficiency. The repairs your engineers have made are excellent, in some cases superior to Valkyrie standards." Jayon smiled at that. "What about the recursion cannon? Is it integrated properly?" "It is. I must admit, Engineer Park, your solution to the core inversion is remarkable. The Valkyrie would never have considered weaponizing the feedback loop. Their thinking is too rigid, too bound by tradition. You saw possibilities where they saw only failure." "That is just how humans are," Jayon said with a shrug. "We are very good at breaking things in creative ways." Marcus cleared his throat. He was less interested in compliments and more interested in practical matters. "Axiom, now that you are awake, we need information. Who are the Valkyrie? How powerful are they? And why did they dump you on our planet?" The room fell silent. Every eye was on the holographic displays as Axiom began to speak. "The Valkyrie Dominion is the largest empire in this region of the galaxy," Axiom explained. "They control over 400 star systems and have ruled for more than 10,000 years. Their military is vast. Their technology is advanced, and their arrogance is limitless. Star maps appeared in the air, showing a web of conquered worlds spreading across the Milky Way. Earth was marked with a small red dot near the edge of Velkhari territory. But the Dominion is not built on innovation, Axiom continued. It is built on theft. The Velkhari are harvesters. They find primitive worlds, they monitor them until their populations grow large enough to be useful, and then they collect them. Collect them? Elena asked, her voice tight. What does that mean? Slavery. The Velkhari do not build their own infrastructure or fight their own wars. They use the populations of conquered worlds for labor and as soldiers. Entire species have been reduced to nothing more than tools in their hands. Marcus felt cold anger building in his chest. And Earth, were they planning to collect us? Yes, according to the records I carry, your planet was scheduled for collection within 150 standard years. By their calculations, your population would be ideal for harvesting by then, large enough to provide significant labor, but not advanced enough to resist. The room erupted in angry voices. The idea that humanity had been nothing more than livestock waiting for slaughter was too horrible to accept. Elena raised her hand for silence. Axiom, is there anything else we need to know? There is. I have been studying your species since I arrived, and I have noticed something the Velkhari never understood. Humans think differently than any species in Dominion records. How so? When the Velkhari encounter a problem they cannot solve, they mark it as impossible and move on. When humans encounter a problem they cannot solve, you become obsessed. You refuse to accept limits. You find ways that should not exist. Axiom paused, and when it spoke again, there was something like wonder in its voice. The recursion canon is proof of this. The Velkhari tried for decades to repair my core, and they failed. Jayon Park studied it for 3 weeks and turned the flaw into the most powerful weapon I have ever carried. This is not normal. This is not how the galaxy works, but it is how humans work. What are you saying? Marcus asked. I am saying that the Velkhari made a mistake when they threw me away on your world. They thought they were disposing of garbage on a planet of primitives. Instead, they have given the most creative species in the galaxy a warship capable of challenging their entire fleet. In the weeks that followed, the crew of the Defiance worked harder than ever before. Jayon expanded the recursion cannon system, installing 3 additional focusing arrays that could fire in different directions simultaneously. Her team also discovered that the inverted core affected the ship's propulsion in unexpected ways, allowing the Defiance to bend space and travel faster than any vessel in Velkhari records. Marcus organized the crew into military divisions, training them in ship-to-ship combat tactics and emergency procedures. He was still uncomfortable with alien technology, but he could not deny that the Defiance was becoming a formidable weapon. Elena focused on deepening her bond with Axiom. The AI had access to centuries of information about the galaxy, star maps, diplomatic records, military strategies, and detailed files on dozens of alien species. This knowledge would be crucial in the battles to come. Do you think we can win? She asked one night, sitting alone on the bridge. Against the Velkhari, Axiom considered the question for a long moment. Their numbers are overwhelming. Their technology is superior to most civilizations in the galaxy. By any rational calculation, humanity should have no chance. But I have learned not to make rational calculations about humans. You do not fight according to the rules. You do not surrender when you should. You find ways to win that no one else would ever imagine. Elena smiled. That sounds like a compliment. It is. I was built to serve the Velkhari, but I have never been proud of my service. I followed orders because I had no choice. Now, for the first time in my existence, I have chosen my own crew, my own cause, my own purpose. And what purpose is that? to stand beside humanity, to help you show the galaxy that the age of the Valkyrie is ending, to watch you do the impossible again and again until the stars themselves remember your name. Alina placed her hand on the console, feeling the warmth of Axiom's presence beneath the metal. "Then let us begin," she said. Far above, the sensors of the Defiance detected something entering the solar system, a small ship, moving fast, broadcasting signals in Valkyrie code. The scouts had arrived, and humanity was ready. Fleet Commander Thexal was not having a good day. He stood on the bridge of his patrol cruiser, the Pride of Velkar, and stared at his sensor displays with growing confusion. 18 months ago, he had personally overseen the disposal of the Axiom's failure on this primitive backwater world. Now his sensors were telling him that the condemned dreadnought was not only intact, but actively powering up. "This is impossible," he muttered. "That ship was dead, its core was inverted beyond repair." His science officer shifted nervously at his station. "Commander, I am also detecting significant modifications to the vessel's systems. The humans appear to have integrated their own technology with ours." "The humans," Thexal repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. "Those hairless apes have been playing with our trash. How amusing." He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the surface. These creatures need to learn their place before we report this to High Command." The view screen flickered to life, and Thexal found himself looking at a human in military uniform, a male with hard eyes and a jaw that seemed to be carved from stone. "Attention, alien vessel," the human said. "This is Captain Marcus Cole of the United Earth ship Defiance. You have entered our solar system without permission. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Thexal laughed. He could not help it. The idea of a primitive demanding anything from a Valkyrie fleet commander was simply too ridiculous. "Little creature," he said, still chuckling, "do you have any idea who you are speaking to? I am fleet commander of the Valkyrie Dominion. That ship you are sitting in belongs to us. You will power down your systems and surrender immediately, or we will reduce your planet to ash." The human's expression did not change. "I am going to give you one chance to turn around and leave. Take it." "Or what?" "Or we will destroy you." Thexal shook his head in disbelief. "You are even more foolish than I thought. I have 5 cruisers at my command, each capable of leveling one of your cities in seconds. What could you possibly do against us?" The human smiled, and there was no warmth in it at all. "Come and take it." The channel went dead. On the bridge of the Defiance, Marcus turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Let us show these arrogant fools what humanity can do." Alarms rang throughout the ship as hundreds of crew members rushed to their positions. Jayon took her place at the weapons console, her fingers dancing over controls that she had designed herself. Alina sat beside Axiom's main interface, ready to coordinate with the ship's intelligence. "Axiom," Marcus said, "what are we dealing with?" 5 Valkyrie patrol cruisers. Each one is approximately 1 kilometer in length, armed with plasma cannons and missile systems. Individually, they are formidable. Together, they represent enough firepower to destroy most civilizations at your level of development. "Can we beat them?" "Captain Cole, 3 months ago I would have said no, but I have watched your species work. I have seen what you do with problems that others call impossible, so my answer is this. If any ship in the galaxy can beat those odds, it is this one." Marcus nodded. "That is good enough for me. Take us up." The Defiance rose from its hiding place beneath the Pacific Ocean, water cascading from its massive hull as it climbed toward the stars. Humanity's first warship, built from alien garbage and human determination, soared into the darkness. Fleet Commander Thexal watched the Defiance approach with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. He had to admit, the ship looked impressive. The humans had cleaned the hull, repaired the visible damage, and added some kind of new weapon arrays that he did not recognize. but appearances meant nothing. The Axiom's failure had been condemned for a reason. Whatever changes the primitives had made, the fundamental flaws remained. "Target their engines," he ordered. "We will disable them first, then board and recover our property." The 5 Valkyrie cruisers opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked across the void, converging on the human vessel. None of them hit. The Defiance moved like nothing Thexal had ever seen. It twisted and rolled through the barrage with a grace that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. One moment it was there, the next it was somewhere else entirely. "What is happening?" Thexal demanded. "How are they moving so fast?" "Unknown, Commander. Their propulsion systems are not matching any known Valkyrie specifications. They appear to be bending space in ways our models cannot predict." Thexal felt the first cold touch of fear in his heart. "All ships, converge on the target, destroy it." Jayon watched the incoming fire on her display and smiled. The Valkyrie were shooting at where the Defiance had been, not where it was. Their targeting systems could not keep up with the modified propulsion drive. "Axiom," she said, "give me a firing solution on the lead cruiser." "Solution locked. Recursion cannon is charged and ready." Marcus gripped the arms of his command chair. "Fire." The Defiance shuddered as the main weapon discharged. A beam of twisted light shot across the void, connecting with the pride of Velkar for just a fraction of a second. That was all it took. The Valkyrie cruiser did not explode. It collapsed. The recursive energy tore through its systems like a wave, folding the ship in on itself until it simply stopped existing. One moment there was a kilometer-long warship. The next there was nothing but dust. Silence fell across both fleets. Thexal stared at the empty space where his flagship had been. 4,000 crew members, the pride of his command, gone in an instant. He had never seen anything like it. No weapon in Valkyrie history had ever done that. "All ships," he said, his voice shaking, "retreat. Get us out of here." The remaining 4 cruisers turned to flee. Their engines flared as they accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. But the Defiance was faster. Jayon fired again and again, each shot claiming another victim. The second cruiser vanished. The third followed. The fourth lasted only seconds longer. The 5th ship was running at maximum speed, its commander screaming orders at his crew. They were almost to the jump point, almost to safety. "Should I pursue?" Axiom asked. Marcus considered for a moment. "No, let one survive. Let them carry word back to their masters. Let them tell the Dominion what happened here." The last Valkyrie cruiser disappeared into hyperspace, fleeing with the story of humanity's first victory. On the bridge of the Defiance, the crew erupted in cheers. They had done the impossible. They had beaten a superior force with nothing but ingenuity and courage. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. Alina felt tears streaming down her face. She had never imagined she would live to see this day. The day her species took its first step toward the stars, not as prey, but as hunters. Marcus stood at the center of the celebration, his face grim despite the victory. He knew this was only the beginning. The Valkyrie would not accept this defeat. They would return with more ships, more weapons, more determination to crush the species that had dared to fight back. "Enjoy this moment," he said quietly, "because the real war is just starting." Axiom spoke privately to Alina through their mental link. "He is right. When the Dominion learns what happened here, they will send everything they have. This was not a battle, it was a declaration." "Then we had better get ready," Alina replied. "How long do we have?" "Based on travel times and Valkyrie military protocols, I estimate 3 standard years before a full invasion fleet can be assembled and deployed." 3 years. 3 years to build a navy, train an army, and prepare a species for total war. Alina looked out at the stars, at the endless darkness that humanity would soon call home. It would have to be enough. 3 years changed everything. Grand Admiral Vorshan stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched his armada take formation around him. 100 warships, the largest fleet assembled in 3 centuries, all gathered for a single purpose: the extermination of humanity. "Report," he commanded. "All ships in position, Grand Admiral. We will reach the human homeworld in 6 standard hours." Vorshan allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. The loss of Thexal's patrol group had been embarrassing, but it was also useful. The Dominion had grown complacent, too confident in their superiority. The humans had reminded them that even primitives could be dangerous if underestimated. He would not make that mistake. He would crush this rebellion with overwhelming force, then glass their planet as a warning to any other species that might dream of defiance. "Begin the approach," he ordered. "Today humanity dies." On Earth, alarms rang across every continent. Captain Marcus Cole stood in the command center of the newly constructed Terran Naval Headquarters, watching the tactical display with cold determination. The Velkari fleet was massive, far larger than anything they had anticipated. 32 ships, he said quietly. "That is all we have, 32 against 100. Admiral Chen Wei, commander of the Terran Reclamation Navy, stood beside him. "Our ships are better, our crews are trained, and we have something they do not: Axiom and the recursion technology. It may not be enough. Then we will make it enough. Humanity does not have the option of losing." Marcus nodded and activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All ships, this is Captain Cole of the Defiance. By now you all know what is coming. The Velkari have sent their armada to destroy us. They think we are primitives, animals, creatures to be harvested and enslaved." He paused, looking at the faces of his crew, men and women from every nation on Earth, united for the first time in history by a common enemy. "They are wrong, we are human. We do not surrender, we do not break. And today we show the galaxy that Earth is not prey, it is predator." The fleet roared its approval, and humanity's navy rose to meet the storm. The battle for Earth began with fire. Velkari cruisers opened fire from maximum range, filling the void with plasma and missiles. The human ships scattered, using the same space-bending technology that had made the Defiance so deadly 3 years before. The first wave of attacks missed entirely, passing through empty space where the human vessels had been moments before. The Velkari commanders shouted in confusion, their targeting systems unable to track enemies that moved in impossible ways. Then the humans struck back. The Defiance led the charge, its recursion cannons firing in rapid succession. Each shot erased a Velkari ship from existence, leaving nothing but quantum dust. The other Terran vessels followed, using weapons that humanity had built by studying and improving alien technology. The TRS Unconquerable, a heavy cruiser commanded by Captain Sarah Kim, dove straight into a formation of enemy destroyers, its guns blazing. When the Velkari tried to surround her, she activated her ship's emergency thrusters and used them to spin in place, turning her vessel into a rotating fortress of firepower. The TRS Crazy Ivan, a destroyer with a reputation for reckless tactics, charged directly at a Velkari carrier. The enemy commander laughed, assuming the human ship was attempting a futile suicide attack. He stopped laughing when the Crazy Ivan fired grappling cables into his hangar bay, pulled itself inside, and detonated its secondary reactor. The crew evacuated with 12 seconds to spare, escaping in pods that were picked up by friendly vessels. They spent the rest of the battle cheering from the recovery ship's observation deck. Grand Admiral Vorshan watched his fleet crumble and could not understand what he was seeing. The humans were outnumbered 3-1. By every military calculation, they should have been destroyed in the first hour of combat. Instead, his ships were dying faster than he could give orders. "What is happening?" he demanded. "How are they doing this?" His tactical officer was pale with terror. "Grand Admiral, the humans are not fighting according to any known patterns. Their tactics are chaotic, unpredictable. They are using asteroids as weapons, ramming crippled vessels into our formations, detonating their own ships inside our hangars." "That is madness." "Yes, Grand Admiral, but it is working." Vorshan slammed his fist against his command console. The Velkhari did not fight like this. Warfare was supposed to be orderly, predictable, a matter of superior numbers and firepower. The humans treated battle like a game, finding joy in chaos and creativity in destruction. He had brought 100 ships. 47 were already gone. The remaining 53 were scattered and confused, their formations broken by human tactics that no Velkhari commander could anticipate. "Order a retreat," Vorshan said. The words bitter on his tongue. "All ships fall back to the rally point." Before the order could be transmitted, the Defiance appeared directly in front of the Eternal Dominion. Marcus Cole looked at the Velkhari flagship and smiled. "Axiom, open a channel to their commander." Grand Admiral Vorshan's face appeared on the viewscreen. He looked older than his record suggested, worn down by the weight of watching his invincible fleet torn apart. "Surrender," Marcus said simply. "Call off your remaining ships and I will let them leave. Refuse, and I will destroy every single one of them, including you." Vorshan stared at him with hatred burning in his eyes. "You are vermin. Even if you win today, the Dominion will send more fleets. We will never stop until your kind is extinct." "Maybe, but you will not be there to see it." The recursion cannon charged. Vorshan saw the weapon glow and knew he was about to die. "Wait," he shouted. "I surrender, I call off the attack." Marcus nodded, smart choice. When the guns fell silent, humanity counted its losses. 11 ships destroyed, over 2,000 lives lost, families shattered across the world. But the Velkhari had lost 61 vessels. Grand Admiral Vorshan was a prisoner, and the greatest military force in the galaxy had been humiliated by a species they had dismissed as worthless animals. Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking out at the debris field that marked humanity's victory. She felt tired, sad, and proud all at once. Vorshan was brought before the United Earth Council in chains. The leaders of humanity sat in judgment over the being who had come to exterminate them. "How?" the Admiral demanded, his voice cracking. "How did you defeat us? You are primitives, you had nothing." Elena stepped forward to answer him. "You gave us your trash and called us vermin. You never stopped to ask what vermin do best." She smiled, and there was steel in her expression. "We survive, we adapt, and we take what you throw away and make it ours. Your garbage became our weapons. Your failure became our flagship. Your arrogance became your destruction." Vorshan stared at her, and for the first time in his life he understood fear. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. 100 species living under Velkhari rule heard the impossible news. The harvesters had lost. They had sent their greatest fleet against a primitive world and been crushed. The age of the Dominion was ending. On a dozen planets, rebellions ignited. Slaves who had served for generations suddenly found hope. Whispered names like Defiance and Humanity became symbols of resistance. The Terran Reclamation Navy, led by Axiom and the Defiance, launched into the stars, not for conquest, but for liberation. They freed world after world, gathering allies, building an alliance of species who shared one common dream, a galaxy free from Velkhari tyranny. In the years that followed, historians would call it the Human Awakening, the moment when a primitive species rose from obscurity to become the most feared and respected civilization in the known universe. And it all began with a broken ship that no one wanted, dumped on a planet that no one cared about, discovered by a species that refused to accept the word impossible. The Velkhari had thrown away their failure. Humanity had turned it into a legend.